to another episode of our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference by B1. Here we talk to founders of sustainable businesses to get their takes on how and why they started their companies and lessons learned along the way. Today, I have the great pleasure of talking with Jennifer Wong and Santos Agustin, the co-founders and owners of Gone to the Dogs, which is an ethical, sustainable, and collaborative pet goods company that partners with women artisans from low-income and immigrant communities locally and internationally to sell collars, toys, wearables, and other pet accessories. Ladies, I super love your business. I'm so excited to talk about it. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us. We're delighted to be here.
Having us.
So let's jump into Gone to the Dogs. So tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you met and started this business and how Gone to the Dogs came to be.
Well, we met as friends. Well, we actually met in the apparel industry many years ago. And we found commonality. We have the same sensibility when it came to music and art and fashion. And we became really fast friends very early on. And then when we both separately left the company that we both met at, and found our different paths. Jennifer she actually went to the Peace Corps after going into children's fashion, and worked with artisans and women makers. And I went into the more sustainable space with a different company. And so many years later, she came back from the Peace Corps, and we reestablished our friendship. And we've been talking about starting this business for a really long time. And we finally did it. I would say like in 2018, we saw a need in the market. Obviously, as designers, I feel like we're always at the forefront in terms of sustainability and ethical practices. It's just pushing the industry towards that. And we found a need in terms of the pet market. We saw that nobody else was doing it. And as pet moms, as rescue moms, we knew that there was something that we could do about it. And so that's how and why we started our business.
Can I ask you for some just time markers? How long and what years did you two work in the apparel industry, and what were you doing? You both were designing?
Mm-hmm.
I think we met in 2007, and we were both working just in fashion and as designers. And then I didn't stay for very long. I think I joined Peace Corps like in 2010, and then came back in 2013. And then we started the business, and we started talking about the business quite before we actually opened. We think we established our LLC in 2018, and then we opened our doors, or we launched our site in 2020.
Okay. And you guys are e-commerce and brick and mortar?
Correct. We launched the e-commerce 2020, and then we opened the retail brick and mortar in 2021.
Okay. I've got a bunch of questions. I'm going to go back to maybe talking about the beginning year, 2 years of after you open your launch your site and then open your doors. But first, I really love your mission. I mean, there's so much in there, and there's so much thoughtfulness and purposefulness and how you set up your business and what kind of things you support and champion. Can you talk a little bit about how you got to a place where you can fold, environmental sustainability, ethical trade and production, support of animal shelters, just so much support of female artisans? How did you get to a place where you could fold all of that into your operations?
So, when we started the business, we were inspired by our dogs, right? Essentially, they're our family. Santos and I brought our pups into our families around the same time, and we just we realized that there wasn't transparency behind the products that we were purchasing from them. And having the background of working with artisans and working in sustainability, we both asked those questions to ourselves when we started the business. How do we want to format this? How do we want to run our business? And that's how we kind of shaped gone to the dogs is behind some of our core values. So one, people, and including and being inclusive of people who are needing opportunities in market access. So as a woman-owned business, that was really important to us to include other women. So that was kind of a given for us, is to include a community of women who would help us produce some of our designs. And for us, it was really important to continue giving them a stable income so they can support their families. And to earth, so thinking about how we design our products and how we put our products out into the world by just thinking simply about the materials. As we all know, climate change is a big deal. It's for real. And so for us, we thought about, initially it was all going to be upcycled. We're like, okay, what kind of upcycled materials can we use to produce products? And so we do have our core collection, which is a rope collection. That's how we came up with our leashes and collars. So everything is upcycled climbing rope. It's used ropes that we collect from all the local climbing gyms.
Okay.
And then we continue to search for upcycled materials and fabrics from factories. And then we also use renewable fibers and natural fibers for some of the apparel and accessory items. And then 3, community was really important for us as well. And I think we didn't realize how important it was until we opened our retail store, until we actually were out there, because we realized how important it was to share our story and our stories with our community. So we also do hold a few events at our store. And then we also support and give back a certain percentage of sales to local animal shelters and nonprofits. And then some of the events that we hold, for example, we do like felting events, which
what is that?
We kind of Santos actually teaches a felting workshop once a month that basically lets our customers know how to reuse some of the felt out there and make their own felt objects. Primarily
like
toys.
That's awesome. Oh, that sounds interesting.
We also have a mending course, so teaching our community how to mend instead of throwing things away when things break or fall apart. And then we do a lot of collaborations, excuse me, with a lot of the local nonprofit animal shelters and rescues in our area. So adoption events and like social events with them.
Okay, so you guys have a lot of physical events at your store as well. It sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds like purposeful crafting events, which is sounding amazing to me. That sounds very therapeutic, actually.
It is therapeutic. We like to tell people that for sure. And
it's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very fun. And I feel like right now our strongest program is our toy recycling program. And it started organically because we did make a choice very, very early on about how we wanted to make our toys. And we had a choice to fill our toys with polyfill because there's a lot of dog toys out there, a lot of cat toys, pet toys that are made out of synthetic materials just so that they last longer. But we don't believe that's healthy for our dog because obviously like with microplastics, like half our body is full of synthetics already. And so we made that conscious decision to fill our toys with wool. And then from that, because wool is compostable and it's also so easily upcyclable, it just made so much sense to establish a recycling program for our dog toys. And then on top of the recycling program that we have for our dog toys, which we tell our customers, you can buy the dog toy once the baby has like basically destroyed it. You can bring back the carcass, you can bring back the remnants, and we'll recycle the wool, we'll give you a discount. And then we took a further step from there and said, you know what, we're going to teach you how to upcycle the wool. That way, even though the dog had a great time the first time, you can remake that toy into something, prolong the life cycle of that product, and make something brand new yourselves with it. Because, you know, with renewable materials like wool, that's something that you can easily do out of the comfort of your own home. So, I mean, essentially, a lot of our events that are successful are very organic, and they come from us being very responsive to our community, listening to them, and also just sticking to our core values as well.
That's awesome. Okay, this makes me think. I've got a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to keep this from becoming unreasonably long as a podcast and a conversation. But this makes me think. So my own journey with B1 and with EPOP, you know, when we started this business, it was like, God, it was really an annoyance. Like we started with, why is there this proliferation of paper receipts? The co-founders, all of us were traveling a lot, and it was just like an annoyance. Like, why do we have to keep paper receipts? And then when you start digging into it a little bit, you're like, oh my God, paper receipts are really bad actually for the environment. And oh my gosh, this ink is toxic. And so you just keep going. And the more that you research something that's kind of benign and just part of everyday life, you start researching it and you're like, oh my God, this is terrible for the environment. Oh my God, this is terrible for us. And you go into a rabbit hole. At least that's how EPOP was started. And then as a result, B1. I feel like this is probably something that is similar, which is pet toys, pet accessories. When you think not much of it, then you start researching a little bit into maybe the dangers or how harmful it is, not just for your pets, but for the environment, etc. And you think, oh my God, and you learn more and more and more. You too, with your background and your experience in not just apparel, but you know, sustainability in this realm. What are some things that actually the average pet owner may not know? And why would something like Gone for the Dogs be a much, much better alternative? I'm sure there are. It's like, it's not even close when you think about these materials and production practices, but it's maybe something that the average person or the average pet owner hasn't occurred to them yet.
I think it's a thing where you have to ask yourselves. We already do it for ourselves. We always shop consciously for ourselves. We're very aware of what we put in our bodies as human beings. And so, you know, and in terms of like, I know that the way that Jen and I shop, because we start out as consumers as well before we are creators. So it's like the things that we buy to ingest, the things that we put on our bodies, we already like shop sustainable brands. We already shop secondhand. And so just extending that to our, you know, four-legged family members, just extending it to them and thinking about like, how are they eating? If I'm eating whole foods, you know, if I'm very conscious of going to the farmer's market or the food co-op every other day, every other week, what about my pet? You know, I think I think that's the easiest way to enter into that whole thought process in terms of like also like how the things that like I'm putting on my dog was like somebody exploited to make this collar, this leash. You know, why is it so inexpensive? You know, was this person paid a fair and living wage to make it? What was the environmental impact in terms of the making of this sweater? You know, it's these questions that we ask ourselves as conscious shoppers it's just easily extended to our dogs. And the great thing is that culture is shifting where we are seeing our pets more as family members than, you know, as domestics, you know? So I think that's just an easy entry in terms of like how to shop, how to create, how to, you know, how to be responsible as a pet owner, a pet mom, a pet dad.
I mean, that was kind of how we started our toy collection as well, was, you know, everyone is trying, all our competitors are trying to make the indestructible toy, right? And we're like, okay, we have to make the indestructible toy because dogs tear apart toys. That's what they do. Totally, you know, we don't know how long it takes to tear apart a toy. Like it could, you know, we were like, okay, well, what is an indestructible toy? And when we looked closer, it's, you know, made of rubber, made of plastic, and what happens to an indestructible toy? It gets torn apart inevitably, and then there's the fear of your pup ingesting that material. So I think for us, our greater fear was that we don't want our family, our pet members, to end up eating like man-made materials. So that's why we wanted to design and produce an all-natural toy for our
That makes a
customers.
lot of sense. And to your point, just because it's indestructible doesn't mean that someone's going to keep it forever. So when it goes into a landfill, it is there forever because it was
Exactly.
designed
Mhm.
to be that way. That's a good
Yep.
point. That is a good point. Okay, can we go back to the first year? Well, first I've got a two-part question. Part A, um, how long did it take between the idea when you two got together and you were like, we should really do this thing, thinking of the idea to, I think you launched your e-commerce site first. So that first launch of the website, how long between idea to launch? And then the second part of it is, what did that first year being in business, what did that look like?
I
Did
can't
we?
even.
I don't remember. I think we, well, I remember, I think we started thinking about it in 2018 because that's when we established our LLC.
Mhm.
And then
So that
that's when
means
we
that we
actually
were talking about
started.
it. Yeah, that's when we start. But us talking about it, that took a long time. I think that we needed to experience a lot of things before we felt ready to start this business. And I think that the thinking about it, I think the believing in ourselves and also trying to figure out what we want in terms of what the company will look like, that took a while. But once we actually registered for the LLC, that's when like we hit the ground running. I mean, and when we say 2018, we did that in November. So it's not in the end of November. So it's not like even it wasn't even like it was 2018. So we had 2019 to actually lay the groundwork, establish our mission, our statement, our core values, what that looked like in terms of working with our makers and, working locally as well as like internationally. And then so in actuality, once we decided to do it, it came together pretty quickly because that's like a year later that we decided to launch.
Okay. How do you
I think
identify the artisan partners that you work with? Or how did you in that first year?
so. I actually post Peace Corps. So I did work with many artisan groups in Morocco, and that was kind of um, my job during the 2 years I was in Peace Corps. And so I learned, actually, that's when I was introduced to working with artisans at a very grassroots level. And so I understood the kind of the economics, the business development piece. And then after I came back from Peace Corps, I actually started working for a nonprofit that did capacity training for female artisans around the world. So I went to all these different places to visit and work with them and design products. We did a lot of capacity training. And that's kind of where I developed my network of artisan groups. And so from there, we were able to kind of pick and choose who we felt would be the right fit for us at the time. And, given that we were so lean at the time, we just really started with like 2 or 3 groups that we wanted to work with, and started off with a really basic collection, and it was great. These are groups that we were already familiar with. Personally, I've worked with them, and Santos recently went and visited them last year. So it's kind of it's been a fruitful relationship and continuing to grow.
Nice. And what about, I've got, again, all of my questions are like multi-part, but this next question is, that first little chunk that you guys got up and running before COVID, what were some of the biggest challenges or the most memorable challenges? I know when you're starting a business, like every day is a new challenge. Every heartbeat is like a new thing that you didn't think of. But what were some of the big challenges? Again, our audience is made up of a lot of small business owners or want to be small business owners and entrepreneurs. So everyone really benefits from hearing the challenges and hurdles and solutions, creative solutions from other entrepreneurs. So in that first year pre-COVID, when you were setting up, what were some of those memorable challenges? And then I'll ask you about what those COVID months look like.
Well, we had to write a business plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was trying to gather Santos and my thoughts all together. And that turned into kind of what was a monster document, right, Santos? Like it was basically all our ideas, everything that we could possibly do. We're just pouring our hearts into this business plan. It had like sections and subsections and like appendices, and it was like, well, we were doing so much research, but it was good for us because we needed that. We needed to do the research, and you know, there are definitely like narrowing it down was definitely difficult for us. I think still today our business plan is like work in progress because it's constantly changing. But that, and so narrowing it down and then also figuring out the finances for it. So that was at the time difficult.
Yeah. And then also part of it was also this was, you know, new products that obviously we had to train our makers to make and train ourselves as well, because, you know, we, contrary to popular belief, we didn't start out as pet designers. We like historically have designed for humans, men and women and children as well. So obviously understanding our customer, understanding their needs as well, and what that includes is like, I mean, if we're talking about being inclusive here, like the shape of a dog, the strength of a dog varies widely, much more so than humans, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe it's not like designing for a typical age group or age range of kids who are roughly the same age and shape and size. You're right. Dogs are like like run the gamut. You're right. And you're not just designing for the dogs. Like, of course, they're the users, and then you have the owners. Yeah, this is, as I think about it, this is more and more complex. Okay.
But luckily, like, obviously we're dog moms, cat moms. You know, once upon a time I was a rabbit mom. So I mean, we are our customers, so it's a lot easier to design for ourselves than it is for somebody that's abstract.
Sure, that makes sense. And then can you talk us through, because you're based in New York. We know that COVID hit New York real hard. What did that season look like for you too, individually, and for the business?
Yeah, that was pretty rough because we launched when we were all still sheltering in place as well. And our makers were also sheltering in place. And, you know, we work with the most vulnerable of populations. So obviously to a large extent, we had to pivot during the pandemic and during the lockdown, and we had to start looking at our own what our own like production capacity would be in-house, and that's where we started growing our own collection, because when our makers are sheltering in place, many of the times they couldn't make our products for us. But we knew we continued to develop with them because we knew we were making great products. But that gave us the opportunity to focus on our walk collection and work locally. So, you know, we were able to concentrate on one of our most popular programs during that time, simply because we were making it in-house. There was a lot of nights sitting on the carpet, on the ground, trying to get the patterning right, trying to get the collars right, trying to get the leashes right, in our own apartments during that time. So it was pretty rough when the pandemic gripped the country. But we were able to successfully pivot because I feel like, or maybe pivot's the wrong word, but we were able to make a go out of it simply because of necessity. We looked at what we had around us and we made something out of it.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
actually a good segue into like just the fact that we were making products from our apartments was just like we were like hammering and like clipping and riveting and everything in our own apartments, and we were like, we can't do this forever. And so that's when we started to think about a retail or a studio space, actually was what we were initially looking into, but also from a sales perspective, because we did go online and we were basically invisible because that's when everyone went online,
Right, right.
including brick and mortars. We were not able to, besides for the first 3 months of our friends and family shopping with us, like we weren't actually getting any sales. So that's when Santos and I, put on our masks and we went out and we set up a stand at local farmers markets and artisan markets, and we went to our customers. So we knew everyone was sheltering in place, but we also knew that our customers needed to walk their dogs, right? And they needed to go get groceries, needed to get whatever they needed for their pets. So we went out there, and that's how we introduced ourselves to Brooklyn and New York and everywhere that we popped up. So that was really successful for us because we were able to tell our stories again with the communities, and we were able to introduce our products and have customers touch and feel and see everything for themselves instead of going online and shopping for a name under a brand that they don't recognize or products they've never seen before.
So I would have thought this is really interesting what you're saying, just in terms of trends, retail trends during the pandemic. I would have thought, oh my gosh, this is like the perfect storm for you ladies in your business. We know in the pandemic, like pet ownership exploded, everything is online. You had the foresight to launch your e-commerce site first. Like this must have been amazing, but I didn't ever until this moment really take into account the huge mass migration online. And what you said really made me think. You got lost in the noise. Everyone suddenly was online, and you were a brand new
Right.
brand. So
Yeah.
actually, like strapping on your mask, wading into public spaces, and engaging with the community, as you said, going to where your customers are, that is a thing that really put Gone to the Dogs on a new trajectory, which is like the opposite of what everybody did during the pandemic. That's super interesting, and that makes me want to ask you about kind of community reception. And at the top of the podcast, Jennifer, I think you mentioned the importance of community. So I wanted to double back on that and just talk about community, where you ladies are. Can you tell us where your store is? Also, it's in Brooklyn, but where exactly?
Oh, we
Yeah.
are in Park Slope, 103 7th Avenue between President and Union.
Mhm.
And I think it's kind of funny because obviously, like, we knew our community was going to make or break us. And when we looked at the store, even like we envisioned it being a community space. And one thing that I really love about our store, and I'm very proud about it, is that to a certain degree it is very innovative because it's not just like a retail experience, it's also a maker experience. Like, you
Mhm.
come in, and most times out of the week you will find us making our collection, our rope products in the back. If you walk into the store, you'll see we've leveraged every single piece of space. So you'll see the raw materials out there along with our finished product as well. So you can actually see your product being made. You can see what it's made out of. And if you ask, we are more than happy to tell you where it came from as well. We collaborate with local rock climbing gyms to collect rope that we make out of our rope collection. Instead of like having the rope go to landfills, we found a second life for them with our walk collection.
All right.
I think as Santos is mentioning, we just try to make everything that we do as dynamic. Like every move that we make, it needs to be dynamic. Like moving into the retail space, we needed to make sure we actually needed a studio space. So we needed to find a space to work and make the products. But we were also nervous that we weren't going to make rent. And, you know, as a small business, you're always worried about that. So we're like, okay, well, what can we do to balance the studio rent retail space? So if we were open every day and we're able to make sales every day, even on the slow days, then that would help, right? Counter that. So the space now is a workshop / office, studio, and retail space. And that just came, you know, organically because we were nervous about everything. You know, it was the pandemic.
Sure.
And we just weren't like 100% about anything. And, you know, while people were closing their storefronts, we were opening one during the pandemic. So it was really scary and risky at that time.
Yeah, man, what a story. And it's one that you'll never forget. I mean, the world will collectively remember those days. And this was the beginning of your business, which is really cool. So if I can jump into just business, these are a lot of questions that we get from our community, especially when they're seeking out other entrepreneurs. We don't talk to a lot of co-founders and co-owners. How do you two separate which parts of the business each of you manages?
Oh boy,
that has been Oh Lord. Well, like any relationship, it can be very messy. And we're trying our best now that our business is growing to do a better job of determining what it is to share responsibilities and tasks, and also at the same time what are, you know, we're continually defining what our roles are, and I think that's what it is, defining your role, and on top of that, like just having it on metaphorical paper. You can use your laptop if you want, about what each person is responsible for and what work is really too huge for one person, and who's going to helm what. Like that's really important to do, as we have found out. And you know, obviously we're still a work in progress with regards to that. That's something that we're still obviously trying to figure out, because you know, we you know, the beginnings of a business is always going to be the hardest, and work-life balance is a real thing, and we're still trying to determine that, like, what that looks like for us, and as we grow, we have to grow our team as well, in order for this to be successful.
So this has yeah, go on.
I was gonna correct. I was like, we have worksheets that we have, like worksheets and SOPs, and I like how Santos says, let's write it on a piece of paper. I was like, no, we have files about our responsibilities and who does what. But I guess I think this would be super helpful, is just like knowing when you start a business, and you do this even if you're a solo, you know, owner or entrepreneur, is to, you know, list all the things that you need to do for the business and know that you can't do all of it like to perfection. I think, you know, Santos and I are I think we started off thinking we can't do everything, but to be honest, when, like, and there's two of us too, so like we were thinking, okay, there's two of us, we can do everything. But when you're growing and when you're focusing on certain aspects of growing the business, you can't do everything. And so I think it would make so much sense to prioritize those things on the worksheet, you know, by kind of like your goals for that quarter or for that year, and really focus on those 3 goals. Because if you try to focus on everything, it starts to get very messy and it starts to get very stressful, and then that's like the road to burnout, I think.
So
Right.
what struck me is listening to you, and this I might ask which is like an interview faux pas, which I might ask you some yes or no questions, but it just really made me smile when you were talking about your business plan and how you guys did so much for your business plan, and it needed like one of the big challenges was paring down your business plan into something that's manageable that you could start with. And then Jennifer and and Santos, this notion of like, yes, we have files and files about goals and responsibilities and statements of work and who's responsible for this. This is amazing. Well, I hear a lot of entrepreneur stories that are kind of the opposite. Like it seems to be either one extreme or the other, which is one like I had no idea what I was doing, and I just made it up as I was going on. And then there's the group of which I certainly fall into the second category, which is, and I prepped everything to a lot. Like I over prepped, and that's how I feel most comfortable, etc. How would you describe yourselves as a entrepreneur team, as a founder team? Are you guys like over prepping? I don't even want to say over because there's when you're starting a business, to your point, both of your points, there's not like an over prep. It's you're just doing things on the fly. But how would you maybe some adjectives to describe yourselves as a founder team?
Oh my gosh. I was gonna say bootstrap. That was like the
Mm.
first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was like the first. I mean, we're still like for us, I think we're still trying. I think I would say dynamic. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
we still need to be able to pivot. We still like when I say focusing on like three primary goals every quarter, like Santos and I will sit down and talk about, okay, what do we need to focus on this entire year? What are the three goals for this quarter? And it changes. Like it could be the reason why we do it by the quarter is because sometimes we're down on sales, sometimes something happens and we all of a sudden are low on cash flow. And so we need to sit down and say, hey, like, what can we do? And it's like literally quarter by quarter. Do we
Yeah.
run sales?
So
Do we
like we
run
can,
promos?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, so like we have like our greater goals in mind, but also at the same time, like we a lot of times um simply because like we don't we're very lean. We didn't start out with a lot of money. Um because our cash flow situation changes like rapidly, sometimes it feels you the thing sometimes the thing that you prepare sometimes the what you prepare to do is not what you're going to do. So there is
Right.
a lot of prep, but there's also a lot of okay, there's always going to be fires to be put out. There's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be gears that you have to shift, and like other things that you have to concentrate on that you didn't think that you would have to. So there is a lot of adaptability and flexibility that's needed for I think any business, but also for us as well, or that's what we've had to do anyway.
Do you
Yeah.
have any rituals or even maybe even unconsciously things that you do together to keep yourselves sane?
Oh, I'm actually trying to learn how to do that. That's something that I think
We, yeah, we're working. I mean, we actually, so we, one of the things that we do is we reach out for help.
Mm,
It's not just the two of us. So one of the things that we've learned to do in the past year or two is that hiring staff to do so that we don't do everything, hiring
right.
staff to cover us for sales, having them help us do events and having them help with social media. So that's a part of those tasks worksheets is too like how do we
Mm-hmm.
delegate work to others and not and it's hard because it started out with both of us. We both had control over everything or thought we did, and it's more so giving up some of that control and making your business more of a community and team effort. And then we also have a business coach that we consult with. We have
Ah.
friends who consult that we consult with. They're like our pseudo CFO and like
Mm-hmm.
business colleagues. So we have a lot of help. Like we have a huge network of people that we talk to constantly. And so it doesn't feel so, just the two of us.
Right.
yeah.
And yes, Santos and I speak to a business coach every month, and that's
That's
something that's
awesome.
helped us
Yeah.
the past year. it's really made a huge difference just to have us like a third person kind of see everything from our perspective, really, and just kind of point out like, hey, like what we can't see since we're so knee deep in our, day to day.
Yeah. Obviously we don't like when you say rituals, like waking up in the morning, that's the ritual.
We're trying to be better at it this year. Like I think this year we're like, it's self-care year. Like we're trying to be more aware of, our bodies and our health, our mental health and everything.
It's tough.
Because it is important.
That is the focus. But I think that it's so funny because like in terms of like being flexible and adaptable, I envisioned when we first started this company that Jen and I would see each other every day and we'd talk every day and we'd like our desks would be close to each other every day. But we're lucky if we see each other once a week.
Wow.
Because of the needs of the business. So we have made it a point to come together at least once a week. If there is a ritual, it's that. And so I mean, like, to your question, I think it isn't so much like waking up and meditating and drinking a cup of tea, or maybe that is for Jen, I don't know, but for myself, it's just knowing this is what's going to happen, and this one thing is going to happen every week.
Right. That you ladies get to actually see each other, which does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a Jen and Santos day. We spend the entire day talking about everything, basically, and just catching up.
I love that. That's lovely. And one
great.
more question about I think Santos, you mentioned when you're okay, so my question is about the idiosyncrasies of the pet industry that maybe you don't think about unless you're in it. You get knee deep in the pet industry. So I think Santos, you mentioned designing anything, a product for dogs, but dogs look like anything and everything, and their strength and what they need, the requirements, like they're hugely diverse. What are some other idiosyncrasies about the pet industry that the average person wouldn't necessarily consider or know about?
Well, I guess that's a good question. Like obviously the breed, which lends to the shape and the strength of your dog, and it's and their personalities and their character traits passed down by breeding is always going to be something that we have to think about. And also their temperament as well. During the pandemic, a lot of people rescued pets, which is great. A lot of dogs' temperaments are very different because we don't know where they came from. So, there is trauma as well with dogs. So we, in our space, we try to provide as much of a loving environment as possible. So, I mean, and that's great because nothing makes your day like seeing one of the neighborhood dogs come through and make their daily walk, or sometimes their twice daily walk and come through the store. And I think that's where we also get our market research from. That's like our relationship with the pet community. They're very vocal. They're just like the parent community. They are very, very vocal.
But it's great. Yeah, like as Santos is mentioning, there's just so much like people come in asking for the most bizarre things. So like it's just that in its own, we just know how expansive the pet market will be. And it's going to continue to be. So and it's
so
also
a lot of room
great
for
we
growth.
come in. Exactly.
Yes.
Nice. And creativity and expansion. That's good. Okay, so we've reached the kind of rapid fire portion. We ask everybody the same things, about six questions, 6, 7. As you know by now, my questions tend to have multi-parts, so lots of questions. But anyway, this is the rapid fire portion that we ask everybody. And I'll start with, what do your plans look like for 2023? We're now in the back half of the year, which came in like the blink of an eye. It was just Christmas a second ago. It feels like. What are your plans for the rest of the year?
I know we are prepping for holiday At the moment, we're putting in all of our orders. We are expecting a pretty big holiday season. We're actually doing the two of the big holiday markets in New York.
Okay.
So Union Square Market and Manhattan, as well as Bryant Park, Manhattan and Manhattan. So basically, that's like a several weeks during the holidays. Bryant Park starts a little earlier in October, end of October, and it kind of runs through Christmas. And no, it's a great little market. A lot of people come out for it, you know, tourists, locals. Last year we were at Union Square. It was super festive. You know, I think it was the first year that everyone was kind of back out shopping in person for the holidays. So that was really great for us. And again, our products were super receptive. And so we're anticipating that to happen again this year.
Nice.
And we're also focusing on, well, we plan on debuting or expanding our apparel line this year as well to include sustainably, ethically made outerwear for our pets as well. So that's one thing that we're doing, and we're very proud of the product. And then also we're well, I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but we are focusing on a subscription program beyond the customer. Beyond the customers that we see in in real life. We'd love to be able to provide access to customers that want to experience our brand that aren't local. So, you know, that's something that we're working on as well. Hopefully, you know, it will be 2023, but definitely there are going to be new products that are coming out from our company, and we hope everybody is just as happy and receptive as we are, and is just as excited when they come out, because they look great.
Nice. Product expansion is always super exciting. We'll be sure to plug those on B1 as well.
Awesome.
So, okay, answer me these 3 questions. What do you two, might be separate answers or the same answers, what do you feel like has been your biggest success to date?
I think securing enough capital to make it this far. We've been extremely lucky. The support of our network has, in terms of financially, to get us to this place where we are. I think that was in the beginning. We were like, how do we even get this money? Like, that was one of the questions. When we wrote our business plan, we're like, that's a lot of capital. Like, that's a lot of money. Like, that's more money than I could ever like imagine us raising. So I think that was really big when we were able to get even close to that.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I think landing acceptance into these markets are huge. The holiday markets are quite competitive.
Okay.
I guess you say. So last year when we applied, we were quite surprised that we got in, and this year we were quite surprised that they accepted us into 2 markets. So just having access to those opportunities, just being around the shopping crowds in New York, it's going to make a huge difference for us this year.
Nice.
So we're looking forward to that.
Good. Okay, let's go to the flip side of that then. What do you feel like has been your biggest failure to date?
So I think there are more like learning, like lessons that we've had to learn through first-hand experience. Because if it was a failure, we wouldn't be here. Our company wouldn't exist. And I think that, well, I think one of the failures would be, it goes back to what Jen said, which is basically not securing enough capital in the very beginning, not realizing how much capital we would need to actually realize our vision of what our company is and could be. So I think that's one thing that like we've had to learn firsthand. I mean, and obviously we, you know, everybody knows like how much it really takes to start a business, or maybe everybody doesn't know, but like there is a number that like, okay, most startups like need this amount, and we didn't have access to that amount in the beginning, so we had to bootstrap it. We had to, you know, put in our own savings, like get our family involved. but like that, so I don't think of that as a failure. I think of it more so as something that we just have to go through and learn from and figure out how to how to get access, you know, through grant applications, through rejected loan applications, many rejected grant applications. But you know, finally, it didn't stop us. You know, finally, somebody said yes. Somebody believed in us. Somebody's, you know, a community believes in us, and I think that's how we continue to grow. We take them as lessons as opposed to, oh, you know, time to quit. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and you're right. A lot of this is so we've hosted quite a few people by now on the podcast, and there is definitely a trend. You're right. Entrepreneurs do not like to use the word failure, and especially North American based entrepreneurs. I don't know if it's cultural, but yes, that is a this is a very salient point. And then our third question in this series is, what do you think is the most important lesson that you've learned today? Is it that you will need more capital than you ever think that you will need at the beginning?
Well, that's one of them.
I mean, we definitely budgeted for a certain amount and we definitely needed more. And it primarily is because we didn't get the full amount in the beginning.
Right.
So okay. I think if we did get the full amount, or maybe even some more than what we had budgeted, we wouldn't run into like cash flow issues in the earlier stages. But you know, like the thing is, of course, not everyone can get that money. And this kind of goes to show that even if we weren't able to get the full amount, and we were able to bootstrap and hustle our way through it. Right. So, and we're still hustling because, you know, we're still committing to these huge markets, which, you know, require a lot of investment and time. And, you know, we're building out booths and there's a lot of new things that we're trying out. So anytime we do anything new and that costs, you know, time and investment, again, it's like another decision that we need to make in terms of growing the business. We've learned a lot of lessons along the way. I think also in terms of like as a partnership, being able to work towards a fruitful partnership, always constantly trying to better communication and also not burning out. Like, right. I think key is to not burn out, because once you burn out, that's when it's, you know, that's when the question is, can we actually run this business? Can we like exist? Can Gone to the Dogs exist? Right. So, and we know so many businesses that have burned out because they started during the pandemic and they worked so hard, and, you know, like all of us do, and they've, you know, they pivoted their business. And at the end of the day, it's like they've basically, the business is successful, but they're just done. Right. Because they've just burnt out. So I think for us, we're just very self-aware of that, and just making sure we get all the help that we can to avoid burnout.
And that's not something that I hear with every entrepreneur, and certainly not with every entrepreneur team, is just the self-aware. I mean, you hear things like this is a marathon and not a sprint, but the truth is, at the beginning, it is like a marathon sprint. It's ridiculous. And so you can easily lose yourself. And when I say lose yourself, I mean just neglect your own like levels of exhaustion, or just focus, or necessity to recharge yourself, or just, you know, whatever it is, for the sake of, you know, like, okay, we're making it another month. Okay, we've got another month, or even if it's week by week, whatever it is. So that can really, really quickly be lost. So yeah, that's right. It's not a given that every entrepreneur team has the self-awareness to say, okay, no, this actually needs to be a focus. We need to make it to the long haul. So how do we set ourselves up for success, and what does that need to look like?
Right. That's exactly correct.
So
we want to be around for a while.
Right. Yeah, you want to be around for a while. If you ladies could get 85% of the world to adopt a single behavior, what would that be?
I would say if customers and shoppers can be just more mindful about what they purchase.
Yeah, it's exactly what I thought too. Yeah,
if they can just
be a little bit more thoughtful.
To stop and think about, like, if they pick up a bottle of shampoo or something, where that comes from, or a package of pet food, where that comes from. I think that will at least start to change shoppers' behaviors and how we can move towards a more sustainable and sustainable economy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then can I ask you to plug one more time where we can find you in real life, on the internet, on social media? Please plug where we can find you.
Our shop is located in Park Slope, Brooklyn, 103 7th Avenue between Union and President in Brooklyn. You can also find us online. I was about to say www, but I don't know if people still say that. Gonetothedogs.co, and you can easily find us on Instagram with the same handle, gonetothedogs.co, and Facebook, it's gonetothedogs.co.
Awesome. All right. Santos and Jennifer, thank you so much for stopping by. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot, not just about the pet industry, which I didn't give a whole lot of thought to before. And now I'm probably going to go into my own rabbit hole, looking at content on your social media and your website, but also just doing a little bit of research myself. So thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation.
Thanks for having us. It's been great. Fun chatting with you.
And thank you, everyone in the audience. We'll see you on B1.